Hello everybody, welcome to my review on Dune Part 2. I just saw it last night. I can Oh my god, this the Dune Part 1 and 2 are the reason why I want to go to the theater and just sit down with my popcorn and my soda and just watch and be entertained. It feels like I haven't been to a good movie since very long time ago. We, there are some movies that I have seen very well. Maybe this past 2 years I really like. For example, Elvis was really amazing. Midway was pretty good, and 1917 before the pandemic started around 2000, I think it was. But I haven't had that because there's a lot of movies that I've seen this past like 5 year maybe that just killed my the feeling of go to a theater. Like Star Wars just made me depressed. I just didn't want to go to the theater anymore. I didn't want to because Star Wars was part of my childhood. I loved it, and to see it just being butchered on the big screen was just it sucked everything out of me. Like I can't explain it. I just felt depressed. Then the Jurassic World movies came out, and yeah, that last one I had done on my rant and review on that one, and I am not happy in that one. So yeah, I also really loved Jurassic Park when I was young, and to see that franchise being murdered as well is just it takes the energy out of you. It really does. It's so unfortunately. But then something like Dune came out, and I felt a spark, just like with Elvis, where I had a little bit more like, oh, a movie with acting and visual, very spectacle visualization here and there, and a story to tell. To even though it's more like almost like a documentary sort of way, but what we call it, biography kind of movie sort of way. It just this is the reason why I want to see a movie. And then Doom came out, and I was hooked. I oh the acting, the visuals, the camera work, oh, the CGI, even this the practical, the man, there's so much. The story, the world itself, it's so good. Like it's been maybe 7-8 years since I read the books. Yeah, somewhere around 7 years ago, probably it was when I read the books, and I really like the first book. It's really good. The second one, Messiah, it was okay. A little bit like Game of Thrones sort of way. There was a lot of intrigue in it in sort of way. You know that plans within plans within plans sort of way. If I have to quote the Baron. Then the third one was it the Children of Dune? Also, that one was kind of like when it started to become more and more weird. A lot, which I really like. It moving away from the norms and here and there, but it's kind of like in sort of way the Hamlet kind of story in sort of way, kind of like mimicking a little bit, very little, about the Hamlet and the first movie. But excuse me, with Adiana, I'm terrible with name. I'm just gonna call it out right now. I said it before in my movies videos that I am. If don't trust me with names, just no, throw that away. The sister of Paul, which we see in Doom Part 2 when she's a fetus. I'm not gonna spoil anything if you haven't read the book, so I'm gonna keep my mouth shut. Then you have Dune Heretics, I think it was after. Now that one was really weird. Absolutely, there were some other books about Dune, but I don't think they were part of the Paul or the Atreus story, or the the Atreus family story. So, but this movie, Dune Part Two, you know, it's very rare. It's extremely rare that what you call it, a sequel is better than the prequel. And I gotta say it right now, I love this movie. Dune Part Two is much better than the first one. I love the first one. I love Part One. I really do. But the Part Two had it felt like the entirety of an act three, or in either a movie or a book. The camera works. I have to praise the camera works. Whoever is in charge for the camera for this movie, it just it creates such beautiful scenery. Like every goddamn scene felt like this is a wallpaper waiting to happen. Like it just I gotta tell right now, there is not a single goddamn movie that I've seen that's created a beautiful scenery like, for example, The Lord of the Rings, way back in early 2000, and I go even the what do you call it, The Reverend with Leonardo DiCaprio, not the best movie I've seen, but the camera works in that movie is just phenomenal. Just like Doom Part 1 and Doom Part 2, the camera works, it just hits. Just right in the middle every time. It's incredible. And the story, even though I already knew about the story, is still a really good story. It does take some liberties compared to the books, but it still worked for me. There was some part of the story that was kind of like, what about that? This, of course, because in the Doom Part 1, this is not spoiled by the way, there's a lot of this one thing that I was like, where is the Spacing Guild? We don't see the Spacing Guild in Doom Part 1. We do see them in the background, but like, I want to see the real Spacing Guild. You know, if you have read the books and seen the old movie, you know that the Spacing Guild are one of those organizations that are one of these worlds relatively closely to aliens as far we got in this universe, because aliens, or when I say aliens I mean other life forms that have intelligence compared just like humans. There are none in the Dune so far as we know, and there's some hints about it, but there's never been any confirmation about an alien intelligence other than humans. But unfortunately, Frank Herbert, I think he was called, the author of Dune, unfortunately died. I think it was in the late 90s, like 97. I don't remember exactly, but I do know. I think it was before before the millennium, the start of a millennium. I think it was before that, but yeah, it's unfortunate. I would have loved to know what he would think about the Dune Part 1 and Dune Part 2. I think he would appreciate them, just like Michael Crichton with Jurassic Park, the first one, and the Tolkien. He never saw the P.D. Jackson movies, but his son Christopher Tolkien, he saw it. He didn't like it because it wasn't really how should I say, on par with the movie, faithful adaptation in his eyes. But I think it was a pretty good adaptation for the movies. It was the best at the time they could do. But yeah, I would have loved to heard what Frank would have said about this movie. I think he would love. I do think he would love these movies. Absolutely. The acting, I gotta praise the acting. Everyone, I mean it. Everyone sold me that this world it's alive in sort of way. It doesn't matter if it came from the I'm gonna tell right now. When it comes to names for the acting, doesn't matter if it's a Swedish one, Swedish name like me. I just do not have the name, somehow the memories to keep the names in. I'm sorry, but I have to tell them the movie names instead. The guy who play Paul, oh, such a good actor. He was born for this role, absolutely. The girl, the woman who plays Jessica, Lady Jessica, Ferguson something, Rebecca Ferguson, I think it was. Also, I mean, she gets way more. How should I say it? Screen time and a much more way of, how do you say it in English? She gets more screen time, and her character gets to flourish much more, and you definitely see her. I'm not going to spoil. This is not a spoiler section. She's got way more. You definitely see something changing with her. She's just a completely different character, and you believe everything about this character that's happening to her. Absolutely everything. Just like with Paul at a certain moment in the movie, but it could have done a little bit better, but for me. But otherwise, it just the acting. I mean, the Skarsgård who does the Baron just kills it, and then you have Butler who plays what was it called now again? No, something with an F. I don't remember. It's just everyone, even the extra, the actors who stand behind and just being the extras, stuntsmen, whatever, everybody. It doesn't matter. Everybody who's on the screen makes one of the best fucking acting I've seen in a movie for such a long time. I have not seen a movie where even the backgrounds are so convincing, sort of way. Even though they have like 1 second of a glory sort of way, it's still like they do. I can't praise enough for all of the people who was part of this movie. They just such a massively good work here. And the music, oh, the music, I love that they're taking the inspiration of the Middle East, a little bit Egyptian, a little bit, and a lot of the Mongolian throat kind of singing, and mixed them all up into this glorious music. It's just, I love the music in the Dune Part 1, and I love it here as well. It just, this is the standards to me nowadays when it comes to movies, when it comes to cinematography, camera works, acting, even the use of practical and the CGI, and also the music. These are the standards nowadays, absolutely. I said it to my mom who was with me. I told her, like, she was complaining about, well, one thing, and that was it's 3 hours long, and for a lot of people that can be way too long. She said it was a little bit too long, like 3 hours. I mean, not it's not that how should I say, attractive for her. She's very more comfortable with maybe an hour or two, but 3 is too long for her. But I just turned to her and said, Mom, I can sit in there for another 3 hours. I wanted it to continue, absolutely. So yeah, this movie is so good. So anyway, that would be my spoiler-free review on Dune Part 2, and I will say it from 1 to 10. It's a straight 9. It's an epic classic in my opinion. I absolutely loved it. A lot of people seems to love it as well, and people who never heard about Dune, or the newer generation who sees these sort of movies, and they are just being hooked. And I am so glad, absolutely. I'm so glad that Dune got its attention in sort of way that it absolutely deserves. So anyway, if you don't want a spoiler for the movie or the books, I suggest you turn away right now. So thank you all for watching for my review on Dune. It's go out and see it. Just go out and see it. Go out to see it twice. It's such a great movie. So now we are in the spoiler section. So I'm warning you. So the movie begins directly almost after the first movie when Paul is defeating Javis, I think it was called, in a duel, and it kind of like picks up from there, and then the Harkonnens are now on a warpath. They are just trying to exterminate and conquering the northern part of Dune to make sure that pushing the Fremen down south, like trying to suppress them, and try to harvest as much spice as possible. Never explained, but it is mostly explained in the book, where the Harkonnens are aggressively harvesting spice to try to catch up what they have lost since they relieved our Arrakis to the Atreus, because they have to pay back the Spacing Guild almost the worth of 60 years, I think it was, of spice, because of their kind of like barbing to keep the Spacing Guild quiet about what happened to the Atreus and the Sardaukar, the use of Sardaukars and that sort of thing. And the movie goes on with Paul being taught the way of the Fremen by Stilgar, who is played, I don't remember his name, but also he's one, that guy, I just don't remember the name, sorry, but he does one of the best fucking acting in this movie. Like he's a little bit of the comedic side of the movie, like very few times, but every time that he does that, it just elevate the movie even further up. It's kind of like a perfect example how to implement some sort of a little bit of humor in a world of absolute how should I say, darkness and very dark story and backgrounds, that sort of thing. So at least a little bit of humor here and there. I like that. I really do, and I found this as a best example for it. But Stilgar is teaching Paul the way of the Fremen, how their culture work, how they fight, and how to ride a sandworm and that sort of thing. And Stilgar is a believer that in the Lisan al Galid, if I pronounce that correctly, I don't know, but which is kind of like a prophecy that's going around, that Lisan al Galid is this figure that will come from another world and liberate the Fremen from the Harkonnens and the Imperium and launch a holy war, a jihad against the Imperium, and there's going to be slaughter on mass scale and that sort of thing. So yeah, he is a firm believer of that, and this, if you read the book, and even in the first, this is not a spoiler sort of way, because it's mentioned in the first Dune, Dune Part 1, that which is kind of like a false prophecy made by the Ben Gesserit, which is an organization of, well, witches, if you have to go down so, simplify it that sort of way. So he's a firm believer in that, and then you have, of course, I don't know how to pronounce it, Shiny, the woman who Paul falls in love with, and she over time she also falls in love with Paul as he starts to adopt their ways and the Fremen way of life. So yeah, it's so, this story is so good. I'm sorry, but it's so good. Every scene was just so great. So over the second stage of the movie, it's mostly about the Paul fighting against Harkonnens, and Harkonnens have a lot of problem with this, so they eventually try to find solution to it, and the Ben Gesserits are also working in the background, and you do see a little bit of the Emperor, who's played by, still don't remember his name, something with C, right? The guy who played in Saw. He does a really good acting as the Emperor, but I feel like it wasn't enough with him. I feel like they could have flourished him out a little bit more, because there was That's I'm gonna bring it up later instead. So he also wants that he wants Harkonnens to have more firm control of the Arrakis, so the spice can flow much more better and that sort of thing. He knows about the rebellion and revolt against Harkonnen on Arrakis by the Fremen. So the Harkonnens then bring in oh, I don't remember his name. Not Revan. That's the for. I think is that the son of the Baron. Don't remember, but yeah, they bring in his cousin, Flea, something like that. I don't remember his name. It's a weird name, so it's just going to pass me. The psychopath, basically. So yeah, who's played by Butler, and oh, he does such a good job with this character. It's so good, and the visualization of the Harkonnen homeworld, Gidi Prime, I think it was called, which is kind of like this industrial, all wide industrial world that is just, which is just so cool looking, like that black and white effect they had for this entire scene with the gladiator and oh, oh, it's so good. So basically, it's his birthday, so he goes out for a gladiator tour. You see it a little bit in the trailer, and he's being chosen to take the position as kind of like the governor of Arrakis. He's taking the position from Raban, who's pretty much like this brute kind of guy. He doesn't really have the brain or strategical thinking. So compared to Butler, I don't remember the character's name, even in from the books. I don't remember because the name is so weird. So Fleet, I don't remember the name. So basically, he takes over the governorship of Arrakis, and he starts to utilize a much better strategy against the Fremen, and he's successful in pushing them back further south. And he wants to kill Paul, who's now been named Mudhadin, I think pronounced, which is a name for a small mouse in the Arrakis, but it's kind of like become like a rallying name for the Fremen. And in the beginning, we see a lot of Lady Jessica when she's becoming the new Reverend Mother for the Ben Gesserit of the Arrakis, and it's a really cool scene. She does drink the water of life, I think it was called. I think it was called like that, which is kind of like water from the well, how should I say it? The young stages of a worm, so which grant you this special power in sort of way. I don't know how this works, so I don't think even the books explain that. But yeah, she's drinking it and she's becoming like a complete different character. And not only does she completely change and gain a lot of power to hear the voices and advising kind of like voices from the past Reverend Mothers, but her infant Paul's sister, who's in like a feeder stage, becomes alive, and she starts to like kind of like telepathically talk to Jessica, and they are just planning this. it turned dark really really quickly. Like they are starting to planning about utilizing the Fremen as much as possible, starting with the weak, try to emphasize and kind of like spice up the legend of Lisan Al Agid, and it works. It really works. It's been slow, but apparently over the time it's very effective. The movie takes around I would guess like 3 months between stage 1 and stage 3. But there's a lot of time going through that's passed away. You kind of experience it, but meh. as I said, there's some scenes that I can complain about. It doesn't feel like it was several months or weeks between certain scenes, but they try it. But I feel like they could have done it a bit more flourish, a little more, a bit more. How should I say it? I don't know the word. Better is the only word I can come up with right now. There's another fancy word for it, but I don't remember. But yeah, I feel like they could have done it a little bit better. And Paul is having these visions that he's about this big famine and the millions upon millions of people are going to die. It's a really cool scene. And he sees images and visions about a great war and his own and Johnny's death and sort of thing. I don't think that's in the movie. I think it's more like in the book. Well, I think it's in the movie. I think he mentioned it in sort of way. So these visions are telling him to go south to Arrakis and to a certain location, and Paul is afraid. I mean, the actor, he does an amazing job. He did it in the first movie as well, but it's really amazing acting from him. Paul is afraid. He knows that if he goes south, all of these visions about death and famine and war and Johnny's death potentially is going to happen, because these visions are like visions from the future. They're like fragments of the future, so he can't really puzzle it up correctly. But he's afraid. He's definitely afraid for going south. But over time, he realized that he needs to go south. He needs to do these sort of things to win, because he's not going to win the war against Arconans. They are going to lose. Either way, it doesn't matter how much opposition or rebellion they are using against the Arconans. They are going to lose, because the manpower, the Empire, the Galactic Empire, if you're gonna call it like this, the Imperium of the Galaxy has manpower beyond billions. So yeah, they are going to lose. The only way for them to actually win is if Paul goes south, which he does, and he goes to this location where his mother had prepared in secret for Paul's arrival. So for Paul to drink the same kind of like water of life that she drank, so he can get more insight and get all these voices from the past, from the Ben Gesserit's Reverend Mothers, so he can kind of like get a better view of the visions and kind of like puzzling all of the fragments of the visions he see to a better path, to more like a clear picture. The thing is that mostly women can survive drinking this water, because it's extremely poisonous and that sort of thing, and many of them are Ben Gesserits. But basically, Paul drinks it and he dies. Well, he's maybe in a coma in sort of way. They only explain that his life signs are there, but they are very small. But he's basically on the verge of death. So Jaina, I just can't pronounce that name. I'm just going to call her Jaina. Chani, right? Chani. Is that the name? So Chani, she's been forced by Jessica to relinquish one of her tears into the water of lives and give it to Paul, so he comes back to life. And when he comes back to life, he's a completely changed person, just like Jessica when she drank the water of life. And he starts to see the visions much more clearer. He say it as well, like he can see a path, a golden path in sort of way, to victory and even become the Emperor of the Galaxy. So he's going to follow that, and this is exact thing that Paul was afraid of. And the Paul we knew basically is gone. Like that leader in sort of way, he's gone. Like this Paul is a complete different person. Like not entirely, but he's a different person, absolutely. And he does take over. He's in for most of the time. Paul has denied that he's the Lisa al-Ghid. He's not a messiah. He just utterly denies that he's the messiah or the Lisa al-Ghid and that sort of thing. But after he drinks the water, he realized that he can utilize and use the Fremen as a tools instead of being, showing empathy for them like the old Paul does. The new Paul, he's very authoritarian sort of way. So he does start to, instead of denying that he's the Messiah, he's instead embracing it and trying to tell people like, yeah, I am the Messiah. Fall to your knees before me. I will show you the way to victory. I will free you from the Arconians and the Imperium. I will lead you to victory and that sort of thing. And he becomes a very charismatic leader, absolutely. But the entire message of the Dune book, especially, is that you should not put your trust too much on the leaders, because some horrible things will eventually happen. We don't see that much of terrible events happening compare how it's going to be. But that's why I think they're probably going to make the Messiah, and if they're going to do Messiah, we're going to see a Paul that's just nowhere near the Paul from Dune Part 1. It's nowhere near, unfortunately, because I really liked Paul in the beginning of the first movie and that sort of thing. And this Paul frightens me, just like Lady Jessica and her child, the fetus child. It frightens me, and it should, for good reason, as Paul has been warning us about this. Like, it's going, if he goes down south, if he drinks this water, if he becomes this person, terrible things will happen. A great holy war across the universe, and billions of people will die from it, from starvation and bombardment, whatever. It's gonna be horrible. So Paul sends a message to Harkonnens and especially the Emperor, telling that, yep, I'm Paul Atreides, I'm still alive, come and face me, otherwise I will tell the Landsraad, or basically the Senate in sort of way of this, the Parliament of great houses, about the Emperor being the one to order the extermination of the Atreides bloodline, even though that plan was in reality placed there by the Ben Gesserits, who saw the Atreides family kind of like disobedience in sort of way. They don't follow the Ben Gesserit's advice and their vision for the family, so they want them gone, basically, against the Emperor's, even against the Emperor's will. But anyway, so yeah, the Emperor arrives at Arrakis, and Paul lead the Fremens into like this huge battle, and it's just a spectacle to watch. It's such a, the work of cinematography in here, it's just so good, and the action is good as hell. So yeah, the unfortunate thing is that it didn't last that long, even though it could have lasted. I was an hour, please, an hour. So anyway, so Paul managed to fight his way to the throne room of the Emperor, and he kills the Baron, who also is his grandfather, because when Paul drinks the water, the water of life, he finally sees the truth that his mom Jessica is the daughter of the Baron, which is something that even she didn't know about until she drank the water. So basically, Paul is a mixture between the Atreides line from his father and Arconian from his mother side, who's, as I said, the child of the Baron. So Paul fights his way to the Baron and kills him by stabbing him in the throat. After that, so Paul takes the Emperor hostage and also calls all of the great houses to Arrakis. And here he then demands the Emperor to relinquish the throne to him, otherwise he's going to destroy the Arrakis, all of the spies in Arrakis basically stranding the entire universe to their own planets, and it's terrible for them because it's going to lead to a massive famine. Because if you don't know how space travel works in Dune, I'm not going to explain it here right now because it's very complicated and very long. But basically, you have to know that spice is the fuel of many of the starships to open a dimensional portal in some way, or a hole in the universe. I don't know how to explain it. So the Emperor is not going to relinquish his throne to Paul. Instead, Paul then suggests a duel, either between him and the Emperor or someone of their own choices. Paul then decides he's going to fight in the duel, and the Harkonnen, the one the Butler play, still I don't remember. I just don't remember his name. Flaytef, no, something like that, takes the place of the Emperor in the duel, and they fight in a really cool. And it almost looks like Paul is going to lose the fight, but he knows the future. He has seen. In the book, he explained that there are, as he sees the fragments of the future, every single one he's going to lose, but it's one if he follows the golden path again. So eventually, Paul wins the duel, and at that point, the Emperor has to basically relinquish his claim on the throne, but also the great houses sends a message that they don't want Paul as their emperor. They are refusing these sort of ascensions to the throne, even if Paul is marrying the daughter of the emperor, just in name sort of way. He's still in love with Shani. When Shani is, you can definitely see in her expression that she doesn't know Paul. It's not the same Paul before he drank that water, and she's just heartbroken. So she leaves she just leave. She doesn't want to take part of it. She's had enough of all of this. So the movie ends when the Fremen now finally are uncontrollable released into the universe, and the Great War, well, not the Great War, the Holy War, the Jihad of the universe begins. And if you have read the books, you know what it's going to mean. And if you can catch up all of the fragments of Paul's visions, you kind of realize what's going to happen. So in the last scenes, we see Shani using one of those bumper to the ground to summon a worm, and that's basically how the movie ends. I was like, no, an hour more, just 10 minutes, 5 minutes, please. So yeah, I was hooked on this movie. It's fascinating. Now, the big question is, are they going to do Messiah? I hope. I really hope. Please. Messiah, it's not one of the better stories of Dune, but it's still a pretty good story. And I think a lot of people still want to know what happened to Shani, what happened to Paul, what about his sister, what about the Emperor's daughter that Paul married. What happened? What happened during the jihad against the universe? What happened next, basically? So yeah. So unfortunately, for all of you who have that sort of questions, you just have to buy the book, read the book, basically. So yeah, I really hope they're gonna do Messiah. I really do. It looks like they're gonna have to. It's kind of like when they did Doom Part 1. They didn't have any plans for the Part 2 event. They just wanted to see is this really going to be that popular. It's not gonna be that popular. And the first movie came out, and my god, people were craving for the continuation of the movie or the story, and we got it. And now we are craving for the continuation to Messiah. I really want them to do Messiah. Oh, yeah, frankly, I want them to do all of the books. The entire franchise is really unique in its own way. it starts to become way more weird by the end of it. But yeah. Anyway, thank you all for watching my review on Dune Part 2. I go and see it. Go and see it. You just have to. I'm telling you, even if you don't like sci-fi and that sort of thing, go out and see it. It's incredible just for this, just for the the visuals in the movies and the sounds and the music and the acting. It's just so good. But also so sad because I said it before that yes, Dune is the Lord of the Rings for this generation, absolutely. And I'm calling it right now. Dune pretty much had its revenge on Star Wars. Star Wars is dead. Dune has replaced it. Disney has murdered. And frankly, just there's some terrible words I can say what Disney has done with Star Wars, but I'm not going to say it here. But yeah, Star Wars is dead. It's dead. Dune has replaced it. Absolutely. And in a way, Dune has had its complete revenge against Star Wars. Anyway, thank you all for watching. See you all later. What's going to be next? Well, we are not that far off until the release of Manor and I'm so looking forward to it. I want Manor. It's such. I played the demo. It was amazing. I want that game now in my hands. So yeah, thank you all for watching. See you all later.